All right, as something may pop up on your screen. All right, so welcome everyone to another presentation as part of the Secondary ELA Summer of Writing Professional Learning Series. Today's session and presentation is all about writing for college, career, and beyond. And those of you who possibly participated in the standards webinar that I offered about informative explanatory writing, this type of writing really falls under that standard. This is functional writing, writing that our students will use for career, college, and beyond. My name is Lauren Spenceley, and I am your secondary ELA specialist here at the Arizona Department of Education. And my world is all things grades 6 through 12, English language arts. I taught all grades from 7th through 12th grade. My most recent district before I came here was Alhambra School District. They taught 7th and 8th grade, but I've also taught high school, all grades. And I am here to support all of you. I love working with teachers, providing you resources, guidance, evidence-based best practices. And I am part of the academic standards team at the Arizona Department of Education. We have specialists for all the content areas, and I am specifically on the English language arts team. Our mission is to educate, empower, and elevate the expertise of educators and leaders in evidence-based literacy, pedagogy, and practices so that all students in Arizona can learn to read and write proficiently. And I always like to share with you what that means to me is that I am here to support all of you, to help you be the best that you can be for your students and giving you those resources that you need to be the best you can be for your students. So I would love to see who I have here with me today. So if you could please in the chat, say hello and share your name, your role and the grades that you work with, the county you teach in, and finally, why did you decide to join this PD today? There's been a lot of professional learning opportunities this summer, and I'd love to know why you decided to join us today. So I'll give everyone some time to respond in the chat. Hi, Holly. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Nicole. Hi, Danielle. Great to see you again. Wonderful. Thank you. And I know you work with those middle school students. I think it's really great that you're here. Same for you, Faith. Thank you. Hi, Bryant. Great to see you again. Wonderful. All right. Thank you, Mary. Hi, Amber. Thank you. Hi, Amy. Hi, Simi. Hi, Lucinda. Wonderful. I think it's really good for our middle school students to start thinking about this really professional writing. Especially they may choose to go to a high school where they have to have an application process or try to get into special classes, things like that. And it's good for them to already start thinking about this professional writing. Wonderful, Julie. Thank you. Hi, Anne. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Molly. Avid's great program. This is definitely valuable to you then, since we're really trying in Avid, really focusing on getting students excited about college and career. Wonderful, Suzanne. Thank you. Hi, Whitney. Glad you're here. Wonderful. A lot of people wanting to expand their knowledge with writing. As we've shared at some other learning this summer, that's an area we all feel like we can learn more about for sure. Why they need to write. Wonderful, Cindy. Thank you. All right, well, thank you all for being here today. I'm very, very excited for you all to hear from our amazing guests today. So today we will be learning all about writing for college, career, and beyond. And I have with me some very special guests. I have Andrea Glenn, and she's our Director of Post-Secondary and Community Engagement here at the Department of Education. And she has with her Adrian, Cascio, and Delaina LeForce from College Connect Tempe and Diana Mateer from College Depot. And they will all be sharing really powerful resources and topics and strategies about personal narratives and essays, resumes, and the professional voice. I will be providing to all of you all of the materials that they share today. I will be sharing a Google Drive with you later today, probably near the end of the session. And also it will be in the email that I will send out later this week. So you can sit back, enjoy. They have provided all the resources to you that they'll be sharing today. And we will be starting off with personal narratives and essays. And I am going to stop sharing so that Diana can take over.
Thank you, Lauren.
You're
Good
welcome.
afternoon, everyone. And can you all hear me? I assume, Lauren, sounds okay?
Mhm.
Okay, we're going to
Wonderful.
share screen now. We're going to make an effort at this anyway. Let's see. I want the essay essentials, and we are going to open it up for all of you. And while I try to figure out why it's doing what it's doing, which is never possible. Okay, I'm screen sharing. Why is my slideshow? There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's kick this off the right way. I'm Diana Mateer from College Depot. We are a division of the Phoenix Public Library System, located in the Burton Bar Public Library, the Central Library at Central and McDowell in downtown Phoenix. I am coming to you today from the satellite campus of College Depot here in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I recently moved. And I continue my work with College Depot as an advisor and an essay specialist and a financial aid specialist. In other words, I am the jack of all trades. So I'm glad to be with you today to talk about this topic because it's one very near and dear to my heart. I am a liberal arts English major at heart. Unlike most of you, I have never taught middle school or high school English, but I am married to a 40-year veteran of college English teaching at Glendale Community College. So I picked up a thing or two from him, and I also have a background in language arts. So I was the logical choice at the Depot to start reviewing essays. I want you all to become my new best friends with your students, because your students, particularly those who are in the higher grades and are getting ready to do this kind of writing, have another resource besides you to help them. College Depot is a free college access center. We work with students and families and college professionals, high school professionals, all across the state. So we are here for everyone, no matter where you're coming from. I am happy to review the essays that your students write, the answers to the questions that they give, everything that they do. I do that free of charge through email typically, or through a virtual meeting with the student, or both. So today, what I'm going to tell you, you don't have to remember line by line, but I'm going to give you some resources today. And I think Adrian is going to do the same in the resume writing topic, where we will present to you as teachers or counselors ourselves. The way we will present to you is as if you were the students and you were listening to this presentation or these presentations for the first time. This will provide you with a template that you can use, modify, destroy, and start over again, but something that you will have so that you don't feel you're just flying blind when you start to talk about these topics with your students. And I know all of you are probably thinking, as I do, well, I know how to write. I know what to tell students to do, but college and career writing and communication are a little bit of a different animal. And hopefully as we talk today, you will see that. So without further ado, I'm going to begin to talk to you about personal statements, scholarship essays, college application essays. That kind of writing is very specific to the college and career process. I encourage all of you to ask questions, particularly during this presentation. It is not particularly interactive heavy. The third one will be, so you'll have to put your thinking hats on for the next presentation by Adrian and myself. But this time around, I just want you to put your student cap on and think about where you would be if you were approaching the 12th grade and you wanted to go to college, but didn't know how in the world your writing is going to affect your ability to get admitted or to afford it. So without further ado, let's talk about why the essay is important anyway. Why is this kind of writing important to college admissions or to scholarship awards? First of all, it's your opportunity to tell your story and to portray your personality. Some of us remember better than others what it was like when we were looking at college going. Now we know we have to do an application, present our GPA, maybe our standardized test scores if we took those tests, teacher recommendations, counselor recommendations, but it's very rare that students get the opportunity to sit down in front of a scholarship donor or a college admissions officer and introduce themselves personally. They may, at most, get the opportunity to do that in a virtual meeting these days. Maybe they don't get an opportunity to do that at all. So how do they tell people what makes them unique and what makes them different from the other applicants? Why should you pay attention to me? What is my story? Do you want to get to know me? Depending on how you write and how you communicate through your essays, the college admissions department or the scholarship donor may go, that's the most boring person I ever met. I don't really care to have anything to do with them. That is not what you're going for. What you're going for as a student is I want to show them how creative and how exciting I am and how interesting I am. What an asset I will be to the scholarship program or to the college. And the best way to do that is often through the way that you write. Thirdly, the essay is important because it tells the admissions officer, the scholarship donor, something that you may think they already should know by the student's grades. All right, I've demonstrated that I can write and I can think. I got an A in freshman English and I got an A+ in creative writing. So why do you need to know anything else about me? Well, we all know that grades only tell part of a story. So your true demonstration of writing and thinking skills may show up in the essay more than it shows up in anything else. So it's a chance for the student to prove why they earned those A's in English and creative writing class. And Lauren, if you see questions as we go along, please feel free to stop me. Otherwise, I'll just keep on talking.
Definitely, we'll let you know.
This slide, I am not going to read to you because that is not how I work. But I want you all to leaf through these questions on your own, and I want you to form an opinion about them. After you look at a couple of them, does anybody care to share what they think of these questions before I do?
They're kind of scattered. They're all over the place.
Mm-hmm. And do they seem simple? Kind of.
Some of them, you know, but they're all kind of arbitrary. So why are you a good candidate to receive this award? I mean, that's so arbitrary.
It is somewhat arbitrary, but it also forces the person to put out there what they think their best qualities are. The point of this particular screen is just I'm going to tell you something I believe about every one of these questions. These questions are simple on the surface. In fact, you might even use a word like, wow, that's a stupid question. Why do you have financial need? Well, I can answer that in one sentence because my parents don't make much money and this is the only way I can afford to go to school. So the questions might be simple and you as a student might even think they're stupid. But the point is, no matter how simple or stupid the question, your answer needs to be brilliant. And it's the answer to these various questions that show up miscellaneously and somewhat arbitrarily where you as a student will be challenged with how you can answer that in a very uncommon, interesting way. So that's the real reason for me to show you these questions. They're not typically asking you to read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand and write an essay about it. That's a little deeper than these questions. That, by the way, is an actual scholarship. And by the way, hardly anyone ever applies for it because they don't like to read Atlas Shrugged, all 800 pages of it. But remember that these kinds of questions are going to be common, and they're going to be frequent, and they're going to be repetitive. So keep that in mind. Any other comments before I go on, Lauren?
I like the fact that they are broad because it gives you an opportunity to, you know, as a student, to really share what you're good at.
Exactly. But deciding what you're good at and being able to talk about it, there's the real issue. And how do you start as a student? I would encourage all of you, prepare yourself. And the first question you should ask is, how on earth do I do that? I encourage all students to look up scholarships, look up college admissions. There are some resources I'll be sharing with you. Write a bunch of essays based on those common prompts. What do you want to be when you grow up? What is a hardship that you've overcome? Oh my goodness, where do I start, right? So you can write on several topics, at least a shell of an essay. And by doing so, you will likely find that one topic or that one essay that really spoke to you and you cannot say enough about it. That means that's a good essay for you. You're not struggling to find things to talk about. Practice does in fact make perfect. Very few of us, unless we are journalism, old school majors like me, can write a final draft the first time. That is a skill set I had hammered into me as an undergraduate student. But most of us need to write, rewrite, edit in order to get things just perfectly for us. And in that respect, you have to practice. You've got to write several drafts. Honing the writing skills is important. And it allows you to think about what is the best part of yourself for the most interesting. You start out with 5 things that happened to you that were hardships during your life, and you want to discuss only one of them. Pick the one that speaks to you the loudest. It might not be the most significant one. Sometimes the very best topics are the little things in life. And so don't say to yourself or to your fellow students, I'm not interesting. My friends are fascinating, but I don't have anything to talk about. The minute you tell me that, you will come up with the most interesting thing I've ever heard. So don't let yourself think that you're boring. Do your research. Research the college or scholarship organization you're applying to and cater your essay accordingly. If you are choosing a private, religiously leaning institution, and there are many in the US, private with religious affiliations, probably the last thing you want to say is, I'm going to challenge you, school, because I'm an atheist. That's not what they want to hear. And why would you be applying to one of them if you were anyway, right? So it absolutely means that you know something about what you're talking about. What do they value? What's their mission statement? Lauren told you her mission statement for her division of ADE. All of you, as you apply and write, should be thinking about the mission statement of the scholarship or the college that you are applying to. And lastly, why are you qualified for the scholarship or to attend the college? If you don't think you're qualified, it's going to be a lot harder to write about why you are. So you need to approach the essay with some level of confidence that the scholarship you've chosen or the college you've chosen is one that actually is of interest to you and that you believe will be interested in you. Any questions so far? All easy, right? Now we hit the big stuff, guys. All of you who are English teachers know a lot more than I do about the different kinds of essay writing. The one I know the most about, other than just a normal research paper or a question being answered through an essay is the narrative essay that I ask all students who work with me to think about. It's about telling your story. And when I say telling it, you don't want to make up a story about yourself, but I can assure you, you don't need to, because there is some interesting truth about you that between your writing, your teacher's editing, my editing, you will be able to find that interesting aspect of yourself, whether it's a little thing, you know, maybe you didn't win the National Spelling Bee in second grade after you had spent months learning every word in the English language. Maybe it was just about a fight you had with your parents a couple weeks ago. But the reality of that, both of those things, is one may be as meaningful as the other. My basic advice to you is don't give up on a topic just because you think it's too little or too insignificant. Content of your essay, of course, is probably more important than the grammar. Both are important, but content is really what college admissions and scholarships are looking for. They realize they're dealing with high school students. They're not novelists yet. You're not an expert professional writer. You're going to school and college trying to get money for it to learn how to be that. But the content of your essay is going to tell them more about you than you can ever imagine. I encourage you to strive for depth rather than breadth. That simply means don't try to cover everything you've ever done in your life in an essay. Because if you do, you will be writing a college resume that Adrian's going to talk to you about next. What I want you to do in an essay is to narrow your focus to one or two major themes that support each other rather than trying to cover too much. Because if you start a chronology of your life and a description of all of your activities without really describing them, you have simply produced a list or a resume, and that is not what the essay is about. You want to stay aware of keeping my attention span, because I have a really short one, guys. So I want you to be sure that when you're writing, you pay attention to, you can't say to me, on April 5th, I went to the doctor. On April 6th, I got a report. On April 7th, I found out the report was bad. That is not very interesting. But knowing that there was a bad report on your health right up front, that's going to grab my attention. So be careful of how you phrase things, what you start to talk about, how you develop that topic into more than just a chronology of activity. You want to pay attention to the essay prompt. How many times do students, and I hope you're not one of these, but they think they know the answer to the question and then they go way off into the weeds in paragraph 2 or 3. Keep notice of the prompt and do not begin your essay with, my answer to this prompt is, one time when I was not very happy was when I was 8. You just wasted a lot of time and words. So try instead to kind of ramp it up a little bit, make it more interesting, catch my attention, and be careful of word limit. If the word count is 500 words and I see that you've written 100, I will tell you to sit down and write some more. If you've written 1,300, I'm going to start cutting for you and you're going to be mad at me, but realize that I'm doing you a favor, because if they want 500 words and you write 1,300, they're going to throw it to the side because you did not follow the rules. If you only write 100, they're going to go, wow, lazy. They're going to put you to the side too. So don't do that. And elaborate on what's important in the essay. Generally speaking, dates, specific months, dates, years, and titles of activities. Those are less important than the actual general time frame in which the activity occurred and what it was generally. You could spend 10 words talking about, I work for a city of Phoenix. Don't do that. use your words carefully and be more generic, because sometimes the specifics came out in your application. And don't just tell me, show me. It's the difference between stating and demonstrating. Rather than telling the reader that you love volunteering in your community, show them why. So illustrate that concept, walk them through a story in which you work as a volunteer. Just not, oh, I volunteer a lot and I really love it. I want to hear about the experience at Phoenix Children's Hospital where you volunteered, or St. Mary's Food Bank, or wherever that may be. Talk about it in specific terms. That way you're not just telling me what you did, you're showing me what you did. And walk me through the experience. I often tell my students, and I will tell all of you, that what I think is the most important thing is that you put me in the room with you right off the bat. The very best essays I read are ones that start out where maybe I don't really know what's going on, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to show you that in a minute. I want to be drawn in and intrigued. So by starting with kind of a hook or a possible part of a story, I'm going to be drawn in to read the rest of that story. Are we still good, Lauren?
Doing great.
Okay. And this is my very favorite slide because I look like this most of the time. Don't bore your readers. This guy is very likely a college admissions officer. He looks like he's about 25 years old, right? He probably is. He's not much older than the student who's writing the essay, but he has to read a bunch of applications before he gets to go to lunch. So you want to have the application that he reads and goes, wow, I got to put her at the front of the list because she's great. And not the one where he says, oh my God, what am I going to have for lunch? Obvious, but we try to lighten this up and make it a little bit more fun. Be yourself. Be positive. I know in this day and age, it's awfully hard to be yourself and be positive sometimes. Maybe it's easier to be yourself, but it is darn difficult to be positive. But bring in the reader with a captivating start and end with a powerful conclusion, and tie the two together, for goodness sake. We'll talk about that in a moment. Write in such a way that we get some insight into your character and your goals. A lot of students say to me, can I use quotes from famous people or even a quote from my mom or dad? Yeah, you sure can. But make sure it's not just a cliche. And if you're going to use a quote, you better darn well explain it, guys. So be sure that that quote actually lends some credence to who you are. That's very important. I also get a lot of, I'm a lover of questions in an essay. I open almost all of my writing with a question. And I've done that throughout all of my professional student activities because I am in fact a professional student myself. Ask a question. So what is wrong with America? Let me tell you. Now, that's a pretty broad topic. But I am a fan of that kind of writing. It is insightful, it's interesting. It's also kind of off the charts, something that you're not always encouraged to do in a research paper or a regular essay. So be sure that you're looking at the story aspects of what you're doing. You can use personal anecdotes, and I encourage you to do that, but be sure that your essay has some level of optimism in it. I don't want to read your work and do nothing but cry for you because it's so sad and so tragic. If you're going to write about something that is so sad and so tragic, make it something that you learned something from, or that you grew from, or that changed your life for the better in the end, even though it didn't seem like that when it was happening to you. If you are still in the middle of sadness or tragedy, move on to a different topic. It will serve you better. And you want to differentiate yourself. You do that through your experiences. I bet no one has had the exact same experience as you. And even if they have, they won't tell it the same way. So be sure that you are capturing my attention with every word that you write. And consider an addendum to update or explain deficiencies or blemishes in your academic career. The essay is a bad part to explain why you only have a 2.0 average. It is better to explain that, and most applications will give you a place to go. Is there anything else you want to tell us? Yes, during COVID, I struggled with online learning and I was not good at it. And that brought my GPA way down, but I'm doing better now that we're live again. That probably didn't belong in an essay about you, but it certainly is worth mentioning. So you can do that in an addendum. And again, if you are going to write about sadness, tragedy, injuries, illnesses, be sure that something positive, any little thing came out of it that you're able to emphasize in your essay. Lauren, how we doing?
Good, no questions right now.
No questions. Yeah, that's because this is all common sense for all of you English teachers. So I'm glad for that. Now we're going to talk about some examples. I wish I had 2 hours with you today instead of half an hour, because I could show you some dandy examples. But these are some introductory sentences to essays written for Stanford. And we all know how picky they are, right? And these were a few years old, but I still love every one. Student began by telling me, I change my name each time I place an order at Starbucks. What's up with that? I really want to know. I imagine this student is perhaps an actor and they're trying out roles for themselves. Perhaps they're a linguist and they want to try out different pronunciations of names from different countries. Perhaps they're just a joker comedian and they want to make up the most ridiculous name they can. I don't know where this essay is going, but I surely want to know. The second one, I have old hands. Well, I do for sure because I'm old. But why does an 18-year-old have old hands? Perhaps they have had juvenile arthritis throughout their childhood, and that's why their hands feel old. Maybe they have old hands because they've been a caregiver for their family members or other friends in their lives, and they feel like they're older than their years. So the hands that they've placed figuratively or literally upon somebody is a hand that has matured them. That's what they mean by old hands. Again, I want to know. And I want to tell you about number 3, who's never seen anyone get so excited about mitochondria. You might guess I am not a STEM major. I'm not. I didn't even know what mitochondria was, but boy, when I read this sentence, I looked it up. And now I want to know who in the world in this student's life did they notice was so excited about this very specific scientific topic that I imagine this student was stimulated to have a science career based on this person in their lives. So that's where I think this is going. But if it doesn't go there, I won't be disappointed. I just will be interested in what else happened. And then the very last of the bullet points here is both a sad and tragic event that can turn into a triumph. When I was in the 8th grade, I couldn't read. Okay, I got lots of questions, guys. How did you get to the 8th grade without the ability to read? We won't go there. We all know. It happens. Well, how did they turn the corner? Because obviously now they're applying to college and they're ready. These are the kinds of introductions that are a little bit weird, but they are going to develop into something supremely interesting, I can assure you. And all 4 of these introductions resulted in admission to Stanford. Of course, they were not the only reason, but they did not hurt, okay? Anybody have reactions to these kind of introductions? Would you be interested in reading this kind of stuff? Anybody?
Yes, they're sharing. Yes. I love the first one and the last one. Yes.
So you're kind of getting the idea. I'm going to update these pretty soon with some of my own students' essays, because I have some even better examples than this one. But in the interest of time, because this was a short presentation, I don't want to show off every one of my students today to all of the rest of you students. So let's go on. Now, we have some English teachers in our audience today with you students. I want you, particularly if you're an English teacher, but even if you're a student, to choose which of these 4 sentences best captures the picture you see on the left. And I want you to tell me, when you pick one that you like the best, why is it better than the others? Take a couple minutes and do this. And Lauren, as you start to get responses in, if you could read them to me. I don't multitask well.
Of course, it looks like so far everyone really likes 3.
Well, I bet those are the English teachers in our bunch. Why did you like 3, guys?
I think it describes it like pretty much in the picture. Like the cat looks like it's going to pounce. Like the action correlates to the words chosen.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And very quickly, we'll go through why the other 3 are acceptable, but not the best. First of all, first sentence is a little generic, right? Ran and caught are not very active verbs. Well, they're active in that they designate an action, but they're not the best way to explain that action. Ran and caught are pretty basic. And so when I see a student use that kind of language, I say, could you dress it up just a little bit? And they go, where's my thesaurus, right? You don't need to use a thesaurus. I do not want students to feel like you have to use the longest, most sophisticated word in the English language. You do not. But ran and caught are pretty basic. Let's look at number 2. My cat quickly ran and skillfully caught. Well, you just added a couple extra adverbs here. And now you affected your word count, right? Because quickly ran can be easily replaced 2 words for 1. What's that one word? Darted. So you don't need to say quickly ran, because you might be at 501 words and I got to cut something. I'm going to cut quickly ran and replace it with darted. Same thing on skillfully caught. Pounced kind of says that to me. So I don't need to use 2 words where 1 will do. And I know something about all of you who are high school students. You like to be wordy because you think I love it. Well, I'm a journalist by trade. I was taught not to be wordy. And so I won't yell at you. I'm flowery and wordy too. But what I will do is cut and try not to lose your voice or your meaning. And if I do, and you don't like what I did, you'll ignore me. What you say or I say or your teacher says, ultimately what you say is what counts. And then finally, the mouse was fiercely captured by my cat, who ran at a very high rate of speed across the field. This is a passive sentence. And again, you are using passive words, was fiercely caught. You could just say, was pounced upon, or the cat caught the mouse. You don't need to put things in a past tense or a passive tense in order to be effective. So y'all did really good. Those of you who are English teachers, keep up the great work, because this was a very easy exercise for you. For those of you who are students, I'm sure it was not quite that easy. And finally, I want to turn this over to Adrian in a moment, but I want to talk about what I see as the anatomy of a strong essay. I really see when you have 500 or 250 words to work with, you don't have much time or much room. So your first paragraph has to capture me. You have to show me an interaction, put me in the room with you at a moment in time that's going to lead the writer, you, into the essay topic. I'm not going to be sure what's going on all of the time. I had a student last week who started an essay with the weeping, the dreaded weeping. She started without even a complete sentence. I only believe in that if you're doing it for effect, and she was doing it for effect. Boy, did I want to know what the dreaded weeping was all about. I might not be sure, but I had some strong imagery, dreaded weeping. And I felt like I was listening to it along with the writer. She said that in a few simple words and 2 incomplete sentences. Then she got to the middle paragraphs or the essay's body. It might only be 1 paragraph because you're at a short word count. That second paragraph has to tell me what in the world are you talking about? But you don't have to give me a chronology. I just want you to give me the background for the first paragraph. What was happening there? How did that lead into the topic? They will give you the opportunity in that second paragraph to describe that activity or that event. And if you want to unveil something new, or you want to elaborate on an activity on your resume or your application, feel free to do that if they relate to the topic you're talking about. They've got to do that because you just don't want to throw in the kitchen sink just because it's there. And then finally, the last paragraph is your final chance as a writer to make the essay impactful. But make sure that you close the essay by tying it to the beginning. I get a lot of students who just wander off in a different direction. They started talking about an illness in their family and they end up talking about something totally different at the end. And so the essay loses continuity that way. So I strongly encourage a student to look at, and even if you're just repeating a word or a sentence from the beginning of the essay to the end, you have then tied it up in a nice pretty bow that your admissions counselor, advisor, officer, or your scholarship reader is going to say, wow, I really want this person on my team. And I think we're getting close to the end of this one. I talk a lot, and I just did. I would like to take 5 minutes, if we have it, for you all to give me your questions, impressions. What have you seen? What troubles you? What makes you happy? Do you want to just get rid of me? All of those things. And Lauren, I'll let you dictate time before we move on to Adrian.
Yeah, I think if there's any questions right now, that would be fine. And then we also will have time for questions for everyone at the end as well.
Okay. Anything that you all saw that you said, wow, she's way off base on this, or I don't understand it, or I'll never let her read one of my students' essays? Don't say that. I love them.
Amy would love to hire you. No, Amy has asked if you would be willing to do a presentation, virtual is fine, for all of the 11th and 12th graders at their school.
Sure.
So email you?
Yes. And in fact, I want to, I did not do this on this presentation because I cut it, I expand it. It's anywhere from half an hour to 8 hours. We won't do 8, Amy. More like half an hour. We also at the Depot are sponsoring on July 27th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. a 2-hour essay writing workshop that is open to the public, both in and out of Phoenix. It is virtual, and it will cover this and many other topics, including reading of some essays. So I would encourage all of you to go to the College Depot website. You can see that. July 27th is a little early for your students, I know, unless they start at the end of July. But if you don't catch that one, we will have it recorded, and I am happy to do this very thing individually for you guys as well. So just email me. And I don't think I put my email in here because I just told you all about the College Depot, but Lauren, if you can share my email, that would be great.
Yes, for sure. I will do that in just a moment. And also, and maybe we do want to let Adrian get started, but we did have some questions about, I have a lot of middle school teachers here. And so they were wondering if you had any recommendations to help middle school students with this type of writing. And maybe, and I've been thinking about that too, of like, how can we start really hitting them in middle school, because it's going to come fast after that. So do you have any suggestions about middle school students?
I would go with the base. My initial reaction is, and I always have one, ask Andrea, I always have an opinion. I would probably suggest that you get started with your students with a basic question. Nothing too, eccentric, esoteric, but just talk about an event in your life that has changed you. Even though you're only in 6th grade, maybe something from your early childhood happened, or talk about the person you most admire. That was my husband's freshman English first assignment at Glendale Community College, but you could not pick your parents. So you have to pick somebody else, whether you know them or whether they're Barack Obama or Donald Trump or whoever they are. You had those kinds of obvious ones are great for younger students because you're not yet getting into, let's talk to you about philosophy. I'm 13. I don't want to talk to you about philosophy, but I'm happy to tell you about my family. So do you have thoughts too, Lauren, of what you would do?
I was just thinking, just getting them comfortable. It's all about that voice, which I know you all are going to go into a little bit later. And someone's shared in chat earlier, but really just allowing them the opportunity to figure out what their voice is.
Yes.
And what
sorry. We spend a whole lot of time with students telling them not to write this way.
Yeah. Well, and a part of it is that, so the narrative standards are part of the writing standards, but sometimes they do fall to the wayside in the upper grades because it's not always tested. And so I think that's why it's really important for us to remember that just because it's not tested doesn't mean our students don't still need it in their lives. And I think especially 8th grade is a good opportunity, near the end of the year, have them do something like this where they write about a topic. This I believe personal essays are a really good mentor text to read. And maybe have them do something like that, like a this I believe statement, and pick a topic, which starts to spill over into argument writing, but it does help them figure out their voice of like how they feel. And they can use a personal story to start getting that voice and that thinking. And I also wanted to share in the chat, for those of you who might not have been able to attend the narrative writing standards webinar, I only offered it once. So I'm going to share the Padlet from that in the chat where we got a little bit more into narrative writing. Just like we talked about in those webinars, a lot of this type of writing spills over into all 3 types of writing. There's elements of argument because they may be making a claim or a statement. And then there's elements of narrative because you're telling a story. And then there's even elements of informative explanatory because functional writing falls under that. So,
and sometimes it's kind of a combination of all 3.
Exactly, which in the standards, it says that we want our students to understand all 3 because they may be asked to blend it depending on what the writing prompt is. They may have to blend all 3. So, and Molly just shared a really great idea too about having students write about the topic of scars, physical or mental. It's actually a really great way to have the students get vulnerable and share. So I think
I love the ideas. Yes, these are great.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think you've all answered your own questions. You can think of an obvious question that will stimulate a lot of great answers. And my final point, which I did not make during the presentation, is you as students can never plagiarize yourselves. Some people believe you can, I don't. It's your work, use it. If you like it, use it again, but tweak it, make it different based on the prompt. But most of the essay questions, you can write a really good essay and you can keep using it. It's an art form. I had a high school senior this year who used the same essay 15 different ways, and it was successful in her getting scholarship money and college admissions to the college she wanted to go to. So be sure that you put that away when you're in 8th grade. Put that piece of paper away that you wrote, and then drag it back out again when you're a junior. You'll see that it still has relevance, but you'll be able to build on it.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Diana. I know we'll be seeing Diana again in a little bit for the 3rd session today, but we're going to go ahead and hand it over to Adrian, who is going to talk about how to help your students with resumes, which again may feel, if you're a middle school teacher, that may feel like we're not there yet. But I just had a thought, just putting it out there with your junior high students. You could have them do a career research project, and they could write a resume for their dream job, and you could have them practice these skills. So that's something we could think about as we have Adrian and Delaina share with us about resumes. Thank you.
Can I do that too, Adrian?
Sure.
Can I write what I want to be when I grow up? My dream job? I think I'm in it, actually.
It feels like you're in it. And I just want to say, Diana, my question to you is, where were you when I was in high school? Because I needed to hear all this stuff for scholarships.
I was working at one of several places we shall not name, Adrian. But I can assure you I was born when you were in high school.
Fair enough. I want to make sure, Lauren, is my screen being shared? Do you see the
Not yet.
presentation? Okay.
Not yet.
Let me. Oh, okay, yeah. That would help if I hit the share button.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do it.
All right. Do you see the screen now?
Yes. Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. And good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Adrian Cascio. And part of what I do is I work with College Connect Tempe. And I like to refer to us as the younger sibling of College Depot. So hopefully you get the best of both worlds with Diana from College Depot and then us over at College Connect Tempe. But we provide the same kind of services to students and families, primarily providing advising on whatever a student's pathway is in their life. I like to call it just life after high school, whatever that looks like. And despite our name college, we actually provide a lot of career advising and career readiness. So that's why we're going to be talking about resume building. And it's actually going to be myself and primarily my colleague, Delaina LeForce, who's going to be kicking off this presentation. But just a quick tidbit about who I am, hopefully give some kind of credibility of why I'm even talking about this. I've worked previously with a lot of high school students and students who were of high school age but weren't in school. At youth centers and helping them get into internships, doing a lot of job readiness and job preparation. So resume building was something we were always talking about. This is one of my favorite subjects because I think resumes can be so dull. So I like to find a way to spice it up and make it exciting to students. And you know, it's like a kind of contradicts what Diana talks about, everything you want to do well in a scholarship. Some of the rules change up when you're doing a resume, as I'm sure all of you know. So we hope that the information we're going to provide will put it in context, obviously that you'll understand and that you can deliver, you know, to students as well. So we do have a tip sheet that we'll be sending, or Lauren will be sending to you all. And it's the tip sheet's going to be you as an educator, how you can support students. And another thing that I've done with College Connect is also speak to 8th graders. So usually in the spring of each year, we talk to 8th graders about transitioning off into high school, things to keep in mind, and hopefully just talk about, you know, whatever they're thinking about fears, anxieties, excitements, all those kind of things. So well versed speaking both to middle school, high school, and hopefully you all. So I'm going to hand it over to Delaina to kick off the presentation.
Thank you, Adrian. My name is Delaina. I work alongside Adrian with the City of Tempe in the Human Services Department. I'm the Career Ready Tempe coordinator. So I primarily work in our summer internship program. So our high school students are matched with local Tempe businesses, and they go through a soft skills training program, and they are able to learn and develop their professional skills in many different types of businesses that we have here in Tempe. And I've also worked with Adrian in doing different workshops for students. So we've done resume building and interview preparation. So all this information is information that we give to the students as well. And this presentation was developed keeping in mind that you are working with students who maybe don't have a whole lot of formal work experience, that they still have things that they can bring to the table, that they still have assets, they still are a great candidate or a great applicant. And so hopefully this will give you some ideas if you're helping students build a resume that they can put on there if they don't have any type of experience. And the presentation also keeps in mind current resume trends. So we'll get right into it. So I first wanted to start off with a question. So in your professional role, have you assisted students with resumes? I just wanted to get an idea if anybody has ever had to do that. Maybe it's something that you do with your students, or a student has come to you and asked for help. Okay, a lot of yes. Great. So maybe some of this information is a refresher to you. Maybe some of it's new. Okay, so it looks like a lot of you have. All right, we'll get to the next slide. So a student's resume is mainly going to be used for college admissions or potential employers as they're starting to apply for jobs or apply for colleges. It's a short document. It lists professional achievements. So the main core things that are going to be on a student's resume are going to be their education, their experience, and their skills. So we're going to go through all of those topics and talk about different things that are important to put on a resume. So as students are building their resume, the goal should be to create something organized and simple that highlights their skill set and experience, because it is such a short document. They really want to make sure that it's simple, it's concise, but it still shows all the skills that they have. It highlights the important things that they've done, whether that's in a job, or whether it's volunteer experience, or any other sort of activities that they've done, maybe at school or in outside organizations. So making sure to help them create something that is going to be, catching the attention of potential employers or college admissions staff, whoever is going to be viewing their resume. And yes, feel free to ask questions. I'll try my best to answer them, but we'll also have time at the end. So education, I would say this part is probably the easiest part to put on a resume, but all students should have this listed on their resume, and it should show in progress education. So if they're a middle school student, it should list their school. If they're in high school, it should list their expected graduation date. And then also any sort of certificates that they might have are a really great thing to put on the resume. So if they're maybe CPR certified, or if they've done any sort of online trainings, now there's tons of different certificate programs that are really easy to get. And we're actually going to be talking about a resource for students that's free, that they can gain some certificates. We'll talk about that at the end. And then any sort of specialized training or program. I know a lot of, especially high schools, have different training programs that they offer students, things like EVIT, any sort of technical programs that there might be, are things that they could put on their resumes. And even if they haven't completed the program, they should still put on there that they're in progress, or if they've completed a few courses and it's relevant, they can also put that on their resume. And then on here, it says GPA can be shared. It's not always necessary to put the GPA. If it's something for college admissions, they're going to have to share their GPA anyway. So they can either put it or not. But if they're really proud of it, it's always something that can be added to their resume. So we're going to be talking about how to make a skills-based resume. So a lot of adults have an experience-based resume, which is talking about their work experience. But considering that a lot of students maybe don't have any sort of work experience, it's going to be really valuable for them to make a skills-based resume. So this will focus on their transferable skills instead of experience. So transferable skills are skills that they can use in any work experience, any interpersonal interaction, any really educational environment that they're in, are going to be important for them to identify and put on their resume. So we're going to talk about hard and soft skills in the next slide. Both of those things should be on their resume. So skills that they should list on their resume, I would say they should aim for at least 2 hard skills and at least 2 soft skills on their resume, but they can certainly put more than that. So hard skills are things that they learn. They're usually more hands-on types of skills. A lot of times they require training, but not always. So things like writing would be a hard skill, design, so any sort of art, spoken language. So if they're bilingual, that's a great thing to put on the resume. Any sort of mechanical skills or computer skills are also going to be really important. So if they are good at, Microsoft Word, any sort of software, they could put that on their resume. Even if they've never, practiced it in a work setting, they've still practiced it, and, they've still shown that that's a skill for them. And then soft skills are really important. They're interpersonal skills that can be used in any field. So a lot of times soft skills are things that come more naturally to students. Sometimes it's harder to develop them because it is about their attitude. It's about their personality. So, some students might be really outgoing. They might be leaders, and other students, they might be really great team members, good at teamwork and dependable. So this is important, I think, not just for resume development and helping a student with that, but also just personal development for students. So if you ever have an opportunity to help a student identify these skills, I think it would be very beneficial for them. It can help build their confidence. So just asking them questions like, do you know what soft skills are? Or what types of things are you good at? What types of things do other people compliment you on? What are you interested in? Just asking these questions will bring up these skills that they have. And even as teachers, you see the soft skills that they can bring. You see, you're punctual, you're responsible. So I also think, being able to help a student identify those skills are great confidence boosters for them. So like I said, it's great for their personal development too. If you guys are ever able to, take time to do an activity where you do some soft skill identification with the students. So on the resume, you would just, the student would list, the section would be skills, and then I would say, anywhere from 4 to 6 soft skills, or soft and hard skills, is good to aim for. So experience, this can be either work experience or volunteer experience. So they can list tasks and duties in 2 to 4 bullet points. It should be very concise, to the point, should start off with an action word. So things like led, I'm trying to think of some action words. implemented, practiced, developed, things like that should be what you start off with. So it doesn't have to be full sentences. It actually should not be full sentences. Start off with an action word and just, a very concise phrase about what the student did. And then also using informal work experience. So maybe they never had a job, but they babysitted, or they did a day of community service. Those are still things that they can put on their resume to show that they're involved and, that they have skills to bring. So activities are another really great thing for a student to put on their resume, because a lot of students, even though they haven't had time or energy to put towards a job or even maybe towards volunteering, a lot of students are still very actively involved in things outside of school. So it shows that they have commitment, it shows that they have interests. So things like student government, arts clubs or classes that they might be involved in, church activities, relevant elective classes. So not all elective classes are relevant, but maybe if they're trying to get a job in customer service, they can put something like they took a marketing class, or if they're, applying to college, they can put college career class, prep class, or whatever it is that could be relevant to what they're applying for. And then any sort of sports or clubs that they're involved in, really any sort of organization that they're in, they can put on their resume. If they're involved in any sort of mentorship or tutoring, or if there's a teacher's assistant. I had a student once even that he would volunteer in his teacher's classroom. It wasn't formal, but he still took his time to do that every day and help his teacher out. So I was like, that's a great thing to be able to share and to show, potential admission staff or potential employers that you're helping out, even though you've never had any sort of formal experience. And then along with that, as they're putting activities onto the resume, they should also be including dates and a brief description, and they should be putting that on for any experience that they have. So any work experience, any volunteer experience, even if it was just a one-day thing or they did it for a few months, they should still put it on there so that whoever's reading their resume can see, when exactly they did this and how relevant it is to the position. So some things to include on your resume are key skills. You want to quantify achievements. So if there's a way that you can put numbers on what you did, that's great. So say you volunteered and you assembled 30 boxes to put together for those in need. If you handled cash and greeted, 20 customers a day. Anytime you can put numbers on your resume, it's really great to be able to quantify those. And then, including technological competence. So like I mentioned before, any sort of computer skills, any sort of practical skills, you'll want to put that under your job description or volunteer description of the things that you did. And then including strong leadership oriented words. So, those going back to the soft skills, making sure that you're really showing why you're a great candidate. You're selling yourself to whoever's reading your resume. So you want to make sure that the words that you use are going to be powerful. And even, doing a Google search of like skills, you could pull up soft skills, and there's tons of soft skills. So you can look through those with your students and have them pick out a few that they think would be good and just help them sort of brainstorm really great words that aren't going to be, basic. And then also using relevant keywords from the job, if it is a job that they're applying for, if it's a specific job, then looking through that job description, pulling words from there. Also, if it's college admissions, like Diana mentioned, like going through and looking at the mission statements, what's important to that college, and taking those keywords, putting it on your resume is going to be really important, and it's going to show them why you're a great candidate for them. So here's just some things to look out for when you're helping students write resumes, or if you're reviewing a resume and you see these things, you can bring them up to a student. They should not exceed 2 pages, especially for students who don't have any work experience. It really should not be more than 1 page, and it shouldn't be a half page. The closer to 1 page it is, the better, which is pretty easy to do with formatting and spacing. It's pretty easy to make it 1 space, and also how you section it is important. So also making sure that there's not irrelevant work experience. So for example, I had a student who worked at an ice cream store for like 1 week, and she put that on her resume. And I told her that that probably wasn't a great idea. Sometimes that can be more harmful than helpful because it shows that you're not committed. So just keeping in mind those sorts of things. Is it relevant to, who you're sharing it with? Is it helpful? Is it going to make you look good? And if it's not, maybe just don't put it on your resume. And then, like I mentioned before, there shouldn't be long sentences. There shouldn't be paragraphs. Everything should be bullet pointed and in short phrases. And then don't falsify information or exaggerate, especially if you're expecting to do an interview after you submit your resume, because if they ask you questions about certain things and you don't know how to answer, or say you start working and you can't do something that you said you could do, then it's not going to make you look good. And it's just best to be honest and not exaggerate anything. And then also looking out for typos or grammatical errors. More so because it just, with all of the resources that we have to check for these errors, it shows more a lack of effort on your part that you didn't, make sure that your resume looked good. So keeping those things in mind too. Incorrect information. So things like contact information, making sure that that's up to date. So say they're looking for somebody in a certain city, but you didn't update the city that you live in. Maybe they're going to pass you over because you just didn't update that information, or even inconsistent dates. So making sure that you're putting the correct dates. A lot of times they'll call previous employers, they might call your teachers to check and confirm that you were involved in this activity or involved in this job. And, it's pretty easy to verify this information. Sometimes they'll even look you up online. So just making sure that you're being consistent with the dates you put on, that you're being honest with the dates. And then unclear job descriptions. So as they're writing the job descriptions for each experience, it should just be very concise and clear, and it should make sense. So just keeping that in mind as you're writing a resume. So here's just some general guidelines when helping a student develop a resume. So content, keep resume up to date. So it is a working document. And I say the sooner that you can make a resume, the better. So I think it's great for middle school students to start making their resume, and it's something that they can always keep with them, that they can constantly update as they're gaining new experiences and new skills. And then also making sure that you're using the correct tense. So if you're currently in a position, or you're currently at a school or involved in something, use present tense. And then if it's something that you've done in the past, making sure that it's just consistent throughout. And then including information in reverse chronological order. So the newest experience should be at the very top, and then going into the latest experience at the bottom. And then it should be clearly separated. Headings should have a larger font. I see, can the applicant put their picture on it? I would say they can. I wouldn't recommend any anybody do that, just because I would say it should be focused more on what you can do and, the content of your resume. Maybe somebody else has different advice for that, but I personally would recommend against putting a picture on the resume. And then as far as formatting, black font, I recommend just simple Times New Roman or Arial, 10 to 12 point. Not so much important what those are, just more important that it's consistent throughout. And then, like I mentioned, whatever sections that you have should be boldened. So if you have education, experience, skills, all of those sections should be bolder, and then everything else should be bullet pointed underneath it. And then we actually have a great resource that we're going to share with you to help students develop their resumes. So I will hand it over to Adrian to share those resources, and then we can do questions at the end as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Delaina. And I wanted to add a little additional response to your question, Cindy. So pretty much what Delaina said, I would agree. For the most part, I would advise students not to add their picture. However, there could be some really unique instances. And I've known, peers, for example, depending where they were applying at, like at a retail store, like at the time, I don't even think they're around anymore, but I know like American Apparel, for anyone who knows about that store, they actually wanted you to submit a picture of yourself. So especially probably some clothing retails like Urban Outfitters or certain places, they kind of want to see, that's part of like, how you look, your vibe and whatnot. So those are going to be really unique cases, but I think the standard practice would not to do that. However, something that I would suggest is helping the students think about creating something like a LinkedIn, or at least understanding, those kind of channels where, if they have a professional profile, like online profile, that would be a perfect place where you could put a picture. And it's worth talking to students. That's a whole nother conversation, just talking to them about pictures. I talk to high school students all the time. They submit pictures. I also do, it's a youth commission. So I put a profile of theirs on our website of the youth commission. And so many times I have to talk to them about, what's a picture that, could be kind of professional that they would want to represent them. The biggest thing I actually have to talk to them is the quality of the picture. Sometimes I get really bad quality phone pictures that are really pixelated that can almost make it worse than better and make it distracting. So great question, and also great suggestion about doing that as an activity for students moving on to high school. So, this is just an image of one of so many type of resume templates. In the tip sheet that we're going to give you all, it does include a resume generator. So hopefully it makes it an easy activity where students can put in this kind of information, and then it helps generate, a type of template. And I would say that could be a good start. However, I think going even to what Diana says about, you do want to be creative at the same time. And so that's kind of the balance you have to make with the resume is, trying to adhere to a certain type of template. There are certain guidelines while also, making it creative, making it stand out. And I'm very visual. So I always have to tiptoe that line of showing my personality in a resume. And Lauren mentioned about using real life examples. Yes. I'm actually going to share one real quickly. And this is an example I like to share with students because I think telling stories, helping students, understand the significance of these concepts by telling, a story, as you all know, will help resonate more. And so a story I used to tell students was when I graduated college, I had a resume already, and one that I thought was solid. And so after graduating, this was after graduating from my master's program, I was submitting my resume to all sorts of places, and I was getting very little response back. And I finally went to a career specialist. This was at ASU. So I finally went to her. It took a lot for me. And I identify this with some students who don't like to ask for help, or they think they have it all figured out. I was kind of one of those students, but after not getting any results, I took it to a career specialist, and in a nice way, she pretty much ripped up my resume, and she went over so many things that that she suggested I should change. In a nutshell, she basically explained that my resume really didn't stand out, and it was underselling myself. So, so often we're, told it's not good to brag about yourself. And so maybe some of us get used to, or have a hard time too. I saw someone else made a comment, it's easier to help others make a resume than for myself. And so I agree with that. I think that was Aubrey. So being comfortable with bragging about yourself, this is the opportunity to do so. Same with like scholarship essay writing. This is an appropriate time to do that. So so with that said, after I made the revisions, I did notice I was getting callbacks from employers, and because that resume is going to be many times, if you don't know the person, the company, that's going to be their first impression of you. So this is good for students to start thinking about that, because they may be used to working with their teacher who's known them for so long, or working with certain people, but getting used to the idea of how do you stand out to people who don't know you at all. And I had this conversation with another student I worked with who just graduated college and was applying for a job, and talking about HR. It depends on the process everywhere, but sometimes it's going to go to an HR person who it's not even the one who is necessarily the hiring person. And so it may even go through an automated system. So like what Delaina was saying is those keywords, helping students identify like the keywords, and trying to say less in kind of less is more in that sense, of like just putting the most essential information there is may make or break your opportunity to get whatever it is, that internship, if it's a university, a college, a job. So again, thinking about how you can impress somebody, or because you may also take for granted too what other people have said about you, or know what you're capable of. But if you can't convey that to someone else, you may lose that opportunity there. So I agree. I definitely encourage you, if you have any stories you can tell students yourselves. And I feel like mine resonates because, again, sometimes students may already assume they're pretty solid and don't need to ask for that help. Something else that's in the tip sheet that I suggested, I think could be a fun activity for middle school students. I would do this, they were high school students, but I think you can do it for middle school students, is I actually made an intentional bad resume. I mean, I could have just given them mine, but I made one that was even more obviously bad. And it was an activity. It was usually a group activity where I gave the same resume to, however I split the group up, if it was 2 groups or 3, and they had to identify all the mistakes that they saw in the resume. So, and then I gave them a certain amount of time. And then at the end, we looked at how many that they got. It was kind of a nice competition too, for each of them to see how many things that they're able to find that were wrong with the resume. So other things that we did too was I cut up different parts of a resume and try to help them piece it together. So definitely make it fun. And I think those are ways that too will help them better learn, different concepts of a resume there. And last point too was I would show them I would show them good examples of a resume, but before I got to that, I showed them bad ones, but they were actually bad ones that were funny. So you can Google this, and sometimes I found information where it's just like, it wasn't a whole resume, but it just like made some funny examples of what real life examples of what people used for a resume. So it provided for a good laugh for us and the students. But you know, you never want to assume that people always know these things, because you know, adults, we see this, who make some of these mistakes as well. So we don't know what we don't know. And I had timed ourselves, so I know my time is almost up, and I'm just going to go over a couple of things here. Wanted to show you all what Delaina was referring to. You may have heard of this. It's called Edge. And this is a free program that's in partnership. It's with ASU, Schultz Foundation family. I know I'm missing one other organization there that's part of it. I think 100,000 workforce or something like that. This is a program that I've used for my youth leadership program, and I know Delaina uses with Career Ready Tempe. And it's a great way, especially for students who, thank you, Lauren, who do not have any kind of work experience or very little work experience. It's set up, it's very much self-paced, and I feel like if I'm gonna take a gamble here and try to show a different screen, hopefully, Lauren, can you tell me if you're seeing a different screen now?
Yes, it says
Okay.
how to resolve different causes of
Yes.
conflict. Yes.
Perfect, thank you. So
You're welcome.
you could sign up yourself. I actually did. A lot of times, anything that I'm going to be using for students, I want to make sure and do it myself, and make sure it's something that I think is relevant and appropriate. And so it's basically, it's built for students to take at their own pace. They get to choose, or you could identify different skills that you want students, you know, or suggest to them to use. And upon completing any one of these modules, they get a certificate. So this could be another great way for them to put on a resume, you know, any one of these aspects that a lot of them touch upon: soft skills, customer service, leadership, communication, which we know for a fact, especially here at the City of Tempe, talking to economic development, that's the biggest thing employers are looking for. They really care more about soft skills more so than the hard skills, because the hard skills is easier to teach them on the job. The soft skills about what it means to be a reliable worker, you know, have those good communication skills, that's could be tougher, and they really expect people to come in with those type of skills coming into the workforce. So I love this because it's set up, you know, it has animations, and hopefully it's set up for different types of learners. As you watch the animation, the text is on the right as well, and then you'll do an activity afterwards about what you learned. So and it's completely self-paced, so they can take it you know, as their leisure. So this could even be potentially some kind of a extra credit opportunity there. And so going back to the slide, just want to mention again, for any more, you know, one-on-one assistance, that's what College Connect is here for. That's what College Depot is here for. So it doesn't matter where the students live. Both of us provide virtual advising. So you can visit us, tempe.gov /College Connect. There's a way for students and or parents, guardians to make an appointment with us, even if it's not just about resumes, but we've helped students with actually applying for jobs or looking up jobs. And so, you know, if students, like Delaina said, can get started in middle school with developing that resume and just continue to work on that, it'll make it all the more easier once they are ready to apply for a job. Because it's like the resume, I tell students, it's like your cheat sheet. When you're applying for a job, you have to fill out the application. You can look at that resume, and especially if for students who are involved in a lot of activities, sometimes it gets tricky trying to remember timelines and, you know, think about like people that can be contacted. So if they can get on it sooner than later, you know, all the better for them. So I'm gonna open it up if there are any questions or comments at the moment. And this is our contact information. Again, I believe Lauren will be sending this PowerPoint out to you also. If there's anything that you missed, we'll be sending that to you. Cindy, I saw your question. Are these free? Yes. So everything we talk about and every resource we share is completely free. So those Edge modules that we were showing you are free, and anybody can take them. Again, like I said, I created an account myself. And so adults can try them, students, kids, it doesn't matter. Anyone can do them. So thank you for asking. Aubrey, I saw your question about where would a student list these courses on the resume. So one suggestion, and let me see if it's on here. Whoops, I'm going backwards. Again, this is where it starts to come to some personalization. So it doesn't show it on here, but a common thing that you might want, a student might have is like sort of, you know, a title that says, it could say certifications or accomplishments. So that's where I would say to have them, you know, and it might be even accomplishments that they got at school. So like perfect attendance, or if there's any kind of other awards that they may have gotten. Because to me as an employer, if I saw somebody got like a perfect attendance, or I saw these modules and they didn't necessarily have much job experience, then that tells me something about that student, right? It tells me that they are someone who is reliable, that I can count on them to be there for, you know, work, or that at least they understand, you know, concepts of good customer service skills, or how to, you know, handle conflicts, you know, on the job. So again, this is just one really basic template here, but there is going to be some individual aspects that students may have. So obviously I wouldn't tell a student put certifications or accomplishments if at the moment, you know, if they didn't have any kind of formal certifications to put on there, and have something blank. So that's where there'll be some customization.
Adrian, I was just going to add in there too that, you know, oftentimes students do resumes for just academia. So when they're doing them for scholarships, a lot of scholarships will require resumes. And so they could list, you know, their GPA, if it's usually the rule of thumb, if it's higher than a 3.0 or at least a 3.0, or listing AP courses that they've taken, or, you know, more rigorous courses, or even passing with a, you know, probably a 3 or higher, some of those AP courses as well, and including dual enrollment courses, so that they can see that student obviously has had some academic rigor. So depending on whether they're applying for, you know, a specific career or a work industry, or depending on whether they're submitting something for a specific college or scholarship program, could kind of help them formulate how they're going to list those courses and what courses they might want to think about listing, or certifications.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning Andrea. And to my last point is have students get used to the idea of having multiple versions of a resume. So if it is one that they're applying for, if it's for school academic related scholarships, that might look different than if they're applying to, you know, some retail jobs, or, you know, applying to an internship. So not all good information may be relevant information depending who you're applying to. So it's very common to have a few different versions of those resumes, and even those versions might highlight specific skills or, you know, experiences that are more relevant, because nobody wants to look at more information or unnecessary information. They just don't have time. And you might miss out on that opportunity there. So thank you for mentioning that, Andrea. And I think that wraps up our session. Feel free if there's any other questions. Here's our contact information. So, oh yes, and the last point about you could ask students, yes, babysitting, dog walking, all those responsibilities can also be good. I've seen those before as well. So those are another good examples that students could put on there as well. And
Adrian
I'll
and
hand it
Delaina,
over to, yeah, Diana.
I wish you would have been around when I was writing resumes, but you weren't even born yet.
Thanks,
I know.
Diana.
This was so good. I know, I think it kind of reminded all of us of some things for our resumes, but I thank you so much for this and for all those free resources. We actually have a lot of really cool job what's the word that I'm trying to use? Like workforce development places here in Arizona. And it's just really wonderful that you all are getting to hear about these things to help our young people as they're figuring out what they want to do in the world. So thank you. Well, I'm really excited for your last piece. And I'm not sure who's sharing for this one, but
I'll share.
I'm very excited to, because I was actually going to mention when you started talking about LinkedIn, we definitely need to help guide our students to professionalism. So they are going to be talking in this last bit about the professional voice, professional communication, social media, things like that. And just as a reminder for all of you, I will, as soon as they are all done presenting, I have the Google Drive ready, but I wanted to make sure you were focusing, but you will have all the resources, all the slide decks. I'm going to share it through a Google Drive. So, all right, I'm excited to hear this one.
Thank you. I'm excited to hear this one too, because we've never ventured into this before. We talk a lot about professional voice and how students can still be young people and students and speak to all of us as in a more professional way. We could all learn a thing or two about this too, including myself. So I really created this from the great ideas of Adrian and Delaina and Andrea. I just took a stab at it. So we're going to have some fun here in the last 20 minutes or so. We're going to talk about you and your professional voice, all of you students out there. Your words matter. If you haven't heard anything else from Adrian, Delaina, and me, you know that what you say and how you say it makes a difference. But it's not just on an essay, or it's not just in a resume. Your words matter in a number of ways that you encounter every day and don't think much about. Those include your emails, the texts that we all send, whether we're young or old, the phone calls we make, and the dreaded social media. Your words have power. And in the interest of time, I'm going to open it up for a couple comments, but we could go on for hours about the question I'm about to ask you. What is the most cringeworthy post you have ever seen from someone? Now, that could take you hours. Does anybody have the most cringeworthy thing they ever saw on social media? Remember, be politically correct here. I have one if you guys don't. Anybody?
I don't know if any of the most recent ones are even professional to use in this setting. Some of the things that I've seen as of late. So
okay, well, yeah, I hear you, Andrea. Well, I'll give you one from my niece, by the way, who is an activist at heart, and she was a little upset with things going on in Washington, D.C. She is a 20-some-year-old college graduate, and she sent a post last week that said, "Look out, Washington, D.C. I would go there to do crimes." Oh my goodness. There is a lot wrong with that post, including the fact that you have potentially mentioned a threat against an entire city, right? So probably not the most appropriate thing for her to say. You all have examples of this. You have to be careful what you say wherever you say it. And I have to tell myself that all of the time because I'm a pretty open individual and I've said some pretty cringeworthy things in my life too. But hopefully I have learned in 66 years to temper that a little bit. I want you to realize though, as students and as professionals, first impressions are lasting impressions. Adrian and Delaina mentioned that to you. I feel that same way about essay writing. Communication on a day-to-day basis, whether it's verbally or in writing, is unlike a research paper. I'm not talking to you and quoting the last research I did on a subject. I'm just talking to you. You don't have to be as formal when you're communicating with other people, but you don't want to be too casual or too familiar in your tone or your language. For instance, if you've never met the person before and you're introducing yourself on an email, and and you're 18 years old, the last thing I want to hear you say to me is, "Hey girl, what's up?" as your intro. We got that last month from a new student in our GRIT program. And the advisor took it for what it was. It was just a friendly hello, but it also made her kind of think twice. Wow, she doesn't know who I am or what I like or what I don't like. Why did she open her first email to me with, "Hey girl, what's up?" So be careful with being too familiar or too casual. Be persistent, particularly when you're writing or calling someone, but don't be a pest. Never assume, however, that the first time you write an email or the first time you ask a question or the first time you send a text, anyone is going to necessarily write back to you in 3 minutes or less. Those of you who know me know that is what I expect as an individual, but I know that's not realistic in my heart. So I tell you as students, be sure that you don't think you just reach out to me once, and if I didn't write back to you or return your phone call, I hate you, I don't like you, I don't want anything to do with you, or you're not worth my time. Maybe I was just really busy and I missed it. So try again, maybe not a half an hour after you wrote the first one, but put yourself on a reasonable schedule of reaching back out and saying, not, "Hey, lazy Diana, why didn't you respond to me?" But instead saying, "I don't know if you've had a chance to look at my last email, but I wanted to ask again." I'm going to respond much, much more favorably to that second email than the one that goes, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you write back to me?" And I say this, and it sounds so extreme, but everything I'm talking about today comes out of personal and professional experience, including bullet point 3 here. You have to be respectful of the preferences and professional boundaries of the persons you're communicating with. Not everyone loves to get texts or calls after working hours. And as students, we live in a 24/7 world, right? It moves pretty fast. We're busy, we got things to do. If you need to talk to me at 9 o'clock at night, I'll let you talk to me, and I might even write back to you. But if it could wait until in the morning, it might be less stressful for you and for me if you do not communicate with me unless I've specifically told you. Call me anytime. That is what I tell my students, and boy, do they ever listen. But be respectful if you don't have to make that phone call or that text or that email in the middle of the night. Wait till in the morning. It'll probably look a lot better then than it does to you at the end of the day anyway. So remember that the first impressions you make are the lasting impressions. And who in the world are you trying to impress anyway? As a high school student or a future high school student, you're trying to impress a whole bunch of people, and they're kind of important to your life. College admissions offices, financial aid offices at the college, scholarship committees. What if you have been assigned a mentor at College Tempe, College Connect, or College Depot, or within your high school district? You want to make a good impression on them because they're mentoring you. How about your high school guidance counselor? Whether you like them personally or not, you want to be their best friend as far as visiting with them frequently, asking good questions, not being a pest, but showing them that you are truly interested in going to college. They will be interested in you if you will show an interest in what they're doing. Your teachers, obviously, you want to make a good impression on them. They rule your life with their grades. So you want to be on the good side of their equation. Athletic coaches. I have a grandson who worked very hard during high school at Corona del Sol in Tempe district. He worked very hard to impress his coach in soccer, and now is going to play at the collegiate level because in large part of that initial impression that he made with a high school coach. Potential employers, whether you're working at Krispy Kreme Donuts or IBM, it does not matter. You are trying to impress these people because they have some influence over your life and control over what good things happen to you. What are some of the current trends and tendencies that I see where students are looking at how they can communicate most effectively? Number one trend is text versus email. I feel old school because I like email better, but I also text with the best of you. And sometimes though, I tell my students, you send me texts that are 15 pages long. I have one student who texts me practically every day, and it's like a book. Maybe it would be better if she had emailed me. It might be more appropriate for her longer conversations, or if she's trying to attach something. You know, I'm an old woman, half blind here. I may not be able to see that screenshot on the text as well as I can see it on the email. So be sure that you understand, although text is generally preferred these days, email may be most appropriate sometimes. What if your tone is overly conversational? I write pretty much exactly as I speak, and probably most of the adults in your life do the same thing, because we talk a lot more sometimes than we write. So we end up, my emails are pretty familiar. They're often lots of exclamation points, half sentences, because I go, good job. Well, that's not really a sentence, but it's an exclamation. So be sure that you write a little bit differently than you speak, particularly if when you speak, you're getting a little off track like I am here, or you're a little bit more familiar or even manic in how you speak. You want to tone that down a bit in your written conversation. And then finally, I want you to think about the world we live in today. All of you have had virtual versus in-person experiences. And I want you to think about avoiding those virtual bad habits we all have. I spent 2 years barely getting out of my pajamas for a meeting. So I dressed down a lot. I also ate frequently while I was meeting. And I had similar other bad habits. Now the only one I have left is I drink a lot of water, which is maybe not that bad a habit unless you imagine I'm drinking something other than water, which I'm not. But those kinds of things make you seem less professional to yourself and to your audience. So you want to get up just like you were sitting across a desk from that person. Get ready for the meeting. At least look good in the part of the camera that will see you. If you can turn on your camera, it makes it a more personal exercise. If you don't feel comfortable with your surroundings, the place you live, your computer has a crappy camera, that's okay too. Just tell me, I'm not going to turn on the camera. But if you can, try to make the virtual experience as much like an in-person one as you can. Does anybody have a really funny situation that they'd like to describe about something they saw virtually that they would have rather not seen? And don't give me any of that they were half naked stuff. Anybody
So,
have
a lot of cats and pets.
Okay.
So like I had a colleague whose cat just would walk across the keyboard. Just, you know, you'd see a lot of cats.
Okay.
Because they
Or
have
hear
no
a lot
boundaries.
of dogs, which are harder to control than cats.
True.
I often have to apologize for my coworkers.
Mhm.
Or people that just really look like they rolled right out of the bedroom. And they're like, you're like, you didn't even bother to comb your hair or brush your teeth before you got on this call or this meeting. Anybody else have a really, really funny one? In the interest of time, we'll move on, but you can think about that if you have one to share. Professional communication do's and don'ts. The do's. Do be respectful from the beginning to the end. Don't start out ranting about your terrible customer service experience or your rotten high school teacher experience or whatever that is. Be respectful. You can get your point across without being insulting or demeaning. The second one is really funny to me because everyone does it with me. If you're going to write to me, tell me who you are. I can get through an entire email or text where the person has acted as if I am really going to know their circumstance, and I don't have any identifying information about the person. So I'm playing a guessing game. You want to at least say your name. I don't need a recitation of your name, social security number, student ID, date of birth, etc., unless I ask for it. But at least tell me who you are, because I hate to guess or assume who you are, because most of the time I will be wrong. And if you have something that you're requesting or an issue that you're trying to describe, state it clearly and concisely. I do not need an entire transcript of the event that happened between you and the customer service person at Macy's, but I want you to at least describe the highlights of why that conversation produced an issue or a request. And then finally, don't be like Diana. Allow reasonable time for a response, but also follow up. If you write to me and 15 minutes later you go, did you fix it yet? Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? I'm probably going to get stressed and I'll write back to you, but I might not like you very much in that moment. So definitely give a little bit of time. If you think a day is enough, or a week is enough, or an hour is enough, just consider your request, how easy it is to fulfill, how easy it is to research, and when you hope to receive a response. But don't ever assume that one and done is all you need, because you do need to communicate sometimes more than once to get your point across or to get the attention that you need. But there are good ways and bad ways to do that. And even though you're all high school students, I know you know the difference between the good and the bad way to ask for help. What do you not want to do? The professional communication don'ts. Don't start off angry, don't be accusing, and don't beg me to solve your problem, because maybe I'm not going to be able to do that. And I'm a big empath. So if you plead for me to solve your issue and I cannot, we're both going to be left very sad and very disappointed. So start off on a positive note. But when you do that, you could say, please help me with this. And then your second paragraph could be an entire, you're going to trash Diana. What you said in the beginning doesn't matter if in the middle, all you do is insult me or beg me or ask me in a very unkind way to help you. So be sure that you're staying in a lane that is positive and that commands respect from you or for you from your reader. Don't use an unprofessional email address or voicemail greeting. Oh, I bet you've all seen some of these. I cannot repeat to you the most unprofessional email address I ever saw. And it came from a 55-year-old man. So he was not 18. And he had no excuse for the email. But I actually blushed, and I'm older than him. I don't want to see those kinds of emails. Neither do colleges or scholarship donors. And I don't want a voicemail greeting that starts out with your favorite rap song. It happens to have a few curse words in it at the beginning. If that's your email or voicemail greeting, rather, change it up, because it's not going to reflect positively on you. This all sounds like silly stuff until you see it and you go, ooh, that is cringeworthy. So when I talk about unprofessional email addresses, it could be something as simple as babygirl@yahoo.com or surferdude@gmail. Probably something a little simpler than that for your scholarship searching and your college applications would be a little better. So maybe a multiple email address would serve you best in that time. And finally, don't procrastinate. Don't wait until the last minute. Because if you need it today, yesterday, or tomorrow, the chances you're going to have a successful interaction with me are less than if you had given me a few more days or another week or something. Now, granted, you may not know you need help until the last minute, but at least if you acknowledge, I know this is last minute. I don't believe that this is your norm. I believe that you are asking me as an exception. Everyone pretty clear so far? We're moving really fast because we're at 3 o'clock, guys. And finally, everybody knows I'm awesome. They sure do, right? I'm awesome. No, I'm going to tell you right now, most people do not know how awesome you are. Make them pay attention to you with your professional voice. Be fearless when you write, but be smart at the same time. There's no room for you to go, oh, I think I might need this. So don't be shy when you reach out to get what you want. But absolutely, if you try to bully me, I will bully you right back. So don't do that, because most of us adults don't like to be told what to do or what we should think or how we should act. Advocate for yourself, however. That is most important. You are your own best advocate. No one can speak for you, whether it's your mentor, your teacher. So learn to say what you need clearly, concisely, and respectfully. And when you are unsure of how to proceed, ask somebody's advice who already knows you're awesome. When I don't know what to do, I ask my boss, who happens to be on this call today. What do I do next, Judy? Ask for advice. How should I proceed with this? I won't make the call for you as a student. I will not send the email for you as a student. And I definitely will not text somebody on your behalf unless it is clear I am doing so as your advisor and your mentor. But you have to learn to do that yourself. And there's that old cliche, I will not fish for you, I will teach you how to fish. I will help you, as all of the adults in your life will help you, to figure out how to communicate how very awesome you are to others in your everyday communication. And that's really all I have to say about the obvious in this world. There are some resources, however, that Andrea and Adrian put together, resources about social media in the classroom. And I encourage you to look at these. I've not had the opportunity to delve into them, but I'm particularly intrigued about the social media smart guide. It is extremely true. Colleges, scholarship organizations, employers, they will look you up if they have time and feel the inclination to do so. The last thing you want them to see on your social media is your ranting, your raving, your partying, all of those things that you're doing with your friends. You're like, how do I get that out there then? There has to be another way besides something that is open to the entire universe. That's where you have to be careful. And so I encourage you all to look at these resources and use them. They apply to tweets, Facebook posts, even other types of communication that are in the social media realm right now. And on that note, this is a pretty quick one, but I love this topic and I wish I had hours to talk about it because it's fun. But in the interest of time, are there questions? Or Andrea, Adrian, are there things you wanted to add?
I think you did an amazing job, and that this particular this part or course that you just went over could completely be its own webinar in itself, because there's so much content under this. The only thing that I was just going to add was a toolkit from Gear Up that just kind of covers a lot of interactive games and activities at all levels for students around college and career planning. And one of the really cool aspects of that game is there's an interactive game about the college admissions process where the students themselves get to actually be the admissions committee. And so they get to look at resumes and scholarship essays, things of that nature to determine whether that student should be accepted or not. So just wanted to add that in there for everyone. But you know, definitely kudos and hats off to the amazing College Connect and Tempe, or I'm sorry, and College Depot for just an amazing overall presentation. I really thank you guys.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you so much. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh.
perfect. All right, it was being strange. All right, thank you everyone so much. Seriously, this has made me so happy. I really love all of this too. I think it's so important for our students. And I just am so grateful. We probably could have spent a whole day on this, but thank you for being here and for sharing. And everyone who, as you are leaving, I know we went a little bit over, if you have a chance as you're leaving to share, I always like you all to think about how can you use what you learned today from our amazing presenters? How can you bring this back to your students, your schools, your districts, your charters? What would you want to share with them? And please answer that as you are leaving, and we will stick around for a few more minutes. I know we went a little bit over, but we will stick around if you have any questions, any remaining lingering questions. And then just a quick reminder as you're ending, all of you who have been taking part in the Summer of Writing, thank you so much. We do still have our last book study session tomorrow on the writing revolution, and I am offering one more repeat session on argument writing standards on July 14th. So let me just remind you all, you can find all the secondary ELA PD options at this link. And I will email all of you again, just in case you didn't get it. You'll have the resources and some reminders with my email address. I'm always here for all of you to help connect you with these things. Oh yes, thank you, Andrea. And I also, I don't know what I was going to say there, but thank you everyone for being here. I'm actually going to stop recording now. So if you have any more questions, let me just stop the recording, and thank you everyone for being here.